So, should we bring in the closer?
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Free Baseball Podcast. It's number 66 this time. We're closing in on 70 episodes, Jake.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 69.
I'm setting you up, Jake.
That's the episode I'm waiting for.
I'm setting you up for it. But it is July 5th, one day after Independence Day, if you're an American like me and Jake. And what's more American than the great sport of baseball, which we're going to talk today like we always do. So let's go ahead and get into it like we always do with the hot weeks. And this is since June 28th. Starting off with a guy that's pretty good baseball. We talk about him a lot. It's Mookie Betts. Since the 28th, he's hitting at 550. He's got a 667 on base percentage, and he's slugging 1.400. He scored 9 runs, 4 dingers, 10 RBIs. Got a steal in there. Doesn't steal a whole awful lot of bags anymore, but he's worth 1.2 F4 since the 28th.
That's right. Yeah, Mookie's been Mookie Betts. He seemed like he was getting off to a pretty pedestrian start to the year, and now he's sort of broken out in full. And I mean, it really doesn't matter what year it is, but Mookie Betts is always going to look like a Hall of Fame player. And I mean, he is. If Trout wasn't here and Shohei wasn't here, I think Mookie would be like clearly the best player in baseball for the last 5+ years or so. I mean, he won the MVP back in 2017, but he broke out in like 2016. He was even pretty good in 2015. He was worth 5 WAR in his second year. Okay. Yeah. So he's been around for a long time and he's been great forever. I mean, I think he would be like the consensus best player in baseball for a long time, if not for all these other otherworldly stars that he's competing with. But as his game like evolves, he still continues to look incredible. He's added more power this year. He's added more power throughout his career, and that sort of cut into his batting average and his stolen bases, but that hasn't hurt his overall performance. Last year, he was worth 6.5 WAR, and he's already up almost to 4 this year. So I think he's going to top that for one of the best seasons of his career, probably the 3rd or 4th best by the end of the year. So pretty crazy. I mean, he's already at 54 WAR. He's pretty much a lock for the Hall of Fame as long as he doesn't like fall off the face of the earth. But yeah, been great to see him go off. He's really been killing it recently.
Yeah, currently posting a career high walk percentage right now also, which is really nice. Love to see that. But yeah, it's crazy that I feel like for a long time until Shohei really hit the scene, it was like the argument for a while was like Mike Trout is the best player in baseball, and then it's Mookie Betts. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like, oh, Mookie still doesn't get the chance to be considered the best player in baseball because this alien came out of nowhere to take it from you or to take it from him. And we'll talk about him plenty enough later, so I won't dwell on Shohei Ohtani, and we can go straight to another guy who hasn't really gotten the shine up until now, but it's Dane Dunning of the Texas Rangers, formerly of the Chicago White Sox. But he had 2 starts since the 28th that were both very, very good. 1 out away against the Detroit Tigers from a complete game on the 28th, but he went 8 2/3, 4 hits, 2 earned, no walks, doesn't walk a lot of guys, 10 strikeouts, 12 whiffs in that one. Good for a 37% called strikes plus whiffs percentage. And then yesterday on the 4th, he went 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, a little bit more this time, just a 1 earned though, 1 walk, 4 Ks. Cut his whiffs in half, 6 this time. Still good for 26% called strikes plus whiffs percentage.
Yeah, he's been great. This was a guy that I sort of wrote about prior to the season starting. It wasn't like I chose him out specifically, but he came up in one of the articles I wrote in the preseason talking about guys that are really good at getting called strikes in the zone with their fastballs. And so that forces batters, when they do swing, they're swinging at off-speed pitches or breaking pitches, which generally have worse results, either in terms of when they put the balls in play or whether or not they're swinging and missing. So in general, even if like a guy like Dunning, who doesn't have the best breaking stuff, he's like a sinker cutter changeup guy, even though his breaking stuff isn't incredible, if batters are just swinging at that, the floor is brought way up there. So he's continuing to get called strikes on his sinker. He's in the 64th percentile, so he's not like stand out this year, but if we look at those past couple of starts, he had 11 called strikes with the sinker in his most recent start. And then the one versus the Tigers on the 28th, he had 11 called strikes again with the sinker. It comes with no whiffs on those pitches. So they're not swinging and missing. He's just landing them in there for strikes. And those types of, that type of success is hard to carry over from start to start. It relies a lot on passivity from the batter. So it's hard to sort of suggest that that's something that can be really good from start to start, but he's been able to use that to his advantage. His cutter also gets a lot of called strikes this year. It's in the 90th percentile. And so then he just throws his slider and changeup, and that's where he gets his swings and misses. And they don't even have to be like too crazy, just as long as that's when batters are swinging at them. That's how he's going to have success. And that's what we've seen recently, that start versus the Tigers, really crazy. I think the 10 strikeouts he had in that one, that sounds like a career high. I'm gonna double check on that, but Dunning's not really a strikeout guy, and he's not somebody I really ever believed in. Like when he first came up with the White Sox, and he was part of what trade was that?
Lance Lynn trade.
Lance Lynn?
Yeah, he was part of the Lance Lynn trade. I also had to look it up. It's literally what I was doing. I was like, but I know he got traded from the White Sox, but yeah, he was the big piece in the return for the Lance Lynn trade. And there's maybe
he had
this year a little bit of buyer's remorse from the White Sox because Lance Lynn has been ass. Like he's been really bad. But Dane Dunning, I mean, I don't think really like anyone ever expected this level of success out of him. I mean, he's posted like literally more WAR combined than Andrew Heaney and Jacob deGrom. I know deGrom's injured, but like he's been sort of, him and Eovaldi have sort of pieced this Texas Rangers rotation back together when it kind of looked like it was maybe going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he deserves some credit for that. I mean, speaking of the episode number 69, his season ERA now is 2.69, which is actually fourth in baseball. So, I mean, of course, the underlying numbers don't necessarily match that because he's a command guy. And I think the StatCast projection of him is like, he figures to be like a sinker guy, maybe like they called him a kitchen sink sinker guy, fourth starter with plus command. I feel like that's exactly what Dane Dunning has become.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be like all-star level the rest of his career, but he's a pretty solid little starter.
Yeah. The 10 strikeouts tie his career high, which he set back in 2021 in May when he struck out 10 across 5 innings. So not the highest strikeout rate of his career, but still one of the best starts of his career thus far.
Absolutely. But moving on, we can talk about our players of the week, and the AL has 2, and that is, of course, one of them is going to be Shohei Ohtani because I feel like you can probably just pencil him in the AL until further notice for player of the week because he's an alien. And the second guy, much to the chagrin of myself and Jake, is Domingo Germán, who threw the 24th perfect game in Major League Baseball history against the Oakland Athletics in a 9 strikeout performance. Bittersweet for me, but it sucked a lot for us because Domingo Germán, excellent accomplishment for an awful person. So not ideal there. But on the other hand, I streamed him in fantasy baseball. So I streamed
all time.
Streamed a perfect game. So that was pretty good.
Can't top that.
I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, do we need to dwell on Domingo Germán any more than cool accomplishment? Really wish it was not him.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, I mean, for all the reasons as you said, just the stuff hanging over him, the domestic violence, the cheating earlier this year, cheating in the past, and sort of the whole thing of it coming against the A's who are like actively trying to lose. So there's so many blemishes on it that's just like, it was difficult to root for because I think like even a Dodgers pitcher, I would be super pumped to root for a perfect game. I've been wanting to, we haven't seen one in over 10 years. And the last one was by a beloved starter in Felix Hernandez. So I've been waiting to like root for one of those. And when it was Domingo Germán, I was like, oh man, like even though it was coming against the A's, you want to like root for the A's. It was just, like that didn't even factor into it. It was just, oh dang, like this sucks that we couldn't have somebody that I'm more excited to, get locked into baseball record books forever. Yeah, pretty unfortunate. I think it's sort of cool. And like, there's also the social aspects of just like, oh, you got to like give people like a chance to sort of changed as a person. I don't know Domingo Herman personally. I don't know how he's changed since the domestic violence thing. I know that he's married to the woman that he abused, so maybe there was some personal growth there. But considering that he cheated this year and like has been sus for a while, I don't know. The craziest part is that it comes in the midst of a stretch where he looked like the worst pitcher in baseball. The 2 starts prior to this, he combined for 17 runs across 5 1/3 innings, and then he came back after the perfect game and tossed 4 1/3 innings with 3 runs, which not awful, but still not great. So he's been terrible this year outside of that start. He's had a couple of pretty solid starts, but just the stretch recently was terrible, and to sneak a perfect game in there is wild. And the last thing I'll note is Domingo Herman currently holds the record for the longest streak of starts without going over 100 pitches. Do you know how many pitches he threw in this perfect game?
99. I watched it.
Yep. It's so crazy. He's at like 65 starts in a row.
Technically a Maddox, but
yes,
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of, because I was listening to Effectively Wild, which is like my favorite baseball podcast, and they were talking about the guys that have like the longest streaks for that right now. And Maddox was actually on there for a while, and not because he doesn't throw a lot of innings. You would think that the guys who are starting games and they're going out after 5 innings, those guys are going to be the ones with the longest streaks. Maddox was just going super fast and just doing it in 89 pitches or whatever for 8 innings.
He worked fast too, so the games didn't take that long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Shout out
Pretty
to
crazy.
Greg Maddox. Probably
hopefully we get a new perfect game real soon so that we don't have to use like the Domingo Herman picture for a while. Actually, we can meme it up right now while we have the chance. Yeah, I think
Do you have the Felix one?
No, I don't.
I'll find it.
It's too late.
Whack.
You have to put your phone up on the screen. I think the one thing that you can say is you can give kudos to Kyle Higashioka. Not only are there only 24 pitchers who have thrown a perfect game, there's also only 24 catchers. Actually, there could be less. I actually don't know if a catcher has caught multiple perfect games. But there are very few catchers. Yeah, very few catchers that have caught a perfect game. So you got to give props to Kyle Higashioka for calling a really great game there.
Yeah, the context behind this picture is it's literally it's like the flip side of comparing Felix's celebration where he's on like one leg when he threw his perfect game. So
yeah.
But yeah, this is Felix crapping all over Domingo Herman. Also, one more note on the whole domestic violence thing. The Yankees also put out a statement because they had a reliever, Jimmy Cordero, suspended today, and they said that domestic violence has absolutely no place in the game, and they still employ this guy, which is crazy to me.
Unless it's Domingo Herman or
Domingo. Yeah, that's right. They employ both of those guys. So, yeah, I don't feel like that one actually applies. Nope. But yeah, there you go. But moving on. Onto our NL player of the week, which is this guy's also pretty good at baseball. It's Ronald Acuna Jr. I feel like we talk about him not that much, considering he's having a ridiculous season. He could maybe get to like 35-70 or something stupid. Like forget 40-40. There's like a chance he could get 35 home runs and 70 steals.
I mean, yeah, that seems like the baseline right now.
Yeah, really. Like
which is wild to say.
God.
Yeah, he's doing some crazy stuff because I think already he's the first player ever to go like 20-40 before the All-Star break. He was also there's so many records that he's already set, like the things that he's done prior to the All-Star break, but it's wild what he's doing. And the biggest thing is that he's cut his strikeout rate just massively. Mm-hmm. Prior to this year, he was striking out, I think 25% of the time for his career. And then he's cut it all the way down to 12%. So more than half. He's striking out less than half the time. And that's crazy. That's allowed him to make a lot more contact, put the ball in play, take advantage of his speed. And he still maintained the power with 21 home runs this year. And then he's just being super aggressive on the base path. So batting .337, 21 home runs, 41 steals. I mean, yeah, it really doesn't get better than that. 2040 is like an incredible season. We like last year, there was one guy with 40 stolen bases. We've got a guy with 40 stolen bases before the All-Star break, and he's also hit 20 home runs and is batting almost .340. He's almost worth 5 F4 already. Yeah, just ridiculous. It seems like we already know our NL and AL MVP, and we're in beginning of July right now.
Yeah, Ronald Acuna Jr. also is walking almost as much as he's striking out, which is just stupid for a guy that hits for power and is now stealing every single bag in sight, which is just great. I was looking at like his Fangraphs page, and I'm like, oh yeah, these stats are crazy. And I glanced over for a second, and I realized that Ronald Acuna Jr. is still only 25, and this is his age 25 season.
Crazy.
Like,
I just looked at his
it feels like he's been
page.
around forever because he kind of has. I mean, like he debuted in 2018 for the better part of the season. I think he got like 90 games. Let me double check that. I think he played like 111. So he played the lion's share of that season, and then I mean he had the one or two injuries, but for the most part, like he's played a lot of baseball and he's been around a while, and he's still just 25. And it feels like this could maybe just be like what Ronald Acuna Jr.'s prime might be, where he'll just go 40-40 every single season, which is ridiculous. Like, it's just absurd to think about that. Yeah. Has there anyone ever gone 50-50?
No.
He could potentially be the first one to do that because we're right at the All-Star break, and if he hits sort of a power surge, because we know that he has the potential to, if he could hit and get to 50, I mean, he's what 21? So, I mean, 29 home runs. He could probably do that. Get to 50-50. That's crazy.
It would be wild. He would have ridiculous. To really go on a stretch. Yeah. The craziest part right now is his expected StatCast metrics suggest he's underperforming by like a large margin.
Of course it is. His XBA WRC plus. This guy sucks.
His XBA is 352. He's batting 337. His X slug is 662. He's got a 598 slug. So his WOBA is like 33 points below his X WOBA. So there's room for growth somehow.
Yeah, go look at his Savant page. What a guy.
Yeah. And how is his spring speed in like the 60th percentile?
68th percentile.
Yeah.
Really
Come
close.
on, man. A little faster.
Yeah. What a bum. This guy sucks.
Can't even be in the 69th.
He is absolutely pulverizing. Well, he's killing everything this year, but he is eating up fastballs and sliders, which is wild.
Yeah, he's crazy.
10 positive run value versus a slider. That's wild. They can't get him out on it, and they can't get him out on fastballs either. He's just 6% put away percentage on fastballs. They can't get him out on fastballs.
Wild.
What a guy. But Ronald Acuna Jr., we'll probably talk about him later because that guy's real good. And what's coming up? The All-Star game, which will have a bunch of stuff for the All-Star game and the draft. It'll be a pretty packed next few weeks of podcasts for us. And we can go ahead and talk about the completed All-Star game rosters at this point. We can start with the American League rosters, and I'll hand it over to you for this.
Sure, yeah. We can start out with the starters. I mean, I guess we can just run through them. We got them on the screen. Catcher for the American League is going to be Jonah Heim. First base, Yandy Diaz. Second base, Marcus Semien. Third base, Josh Young. Shortstop, Corey Seager. In the outfield, we got Randy Arozarena, Mike Trout, and Aaron Judge. And at DH, we got Shohei Ohtani. These are all fan voted, so nobody else really has a say other than the fans, and you can see which fans were the most active is clearly the Rangers. And I mean, it's hard to I think this was a pretty good selection.
I think so too. And I feel like this is one that the fans more or less got right, with very few exceptions that we can talk about.
Nothing egregious.
No, absolutely nothing egregious, I don't think.
Yeah. So then we can move to the NL starters, and then I think after that, then we'll have some more controversy looking at the reserves and the guys who were snubbed. But in the NL, we got catcher Sean Murphy, first base Freddie Freeman, second base Luis Arias, third base Nolan Arenado, shortstop Orlando Arcia. In the outfield, we got Corbin Carroll, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, and at DH we got JD Martinez. I think another pretty solid core. You can sort of make a case for other guys at different positions and sort of squabble with things, mostly at third base and shortstop. But they didn't really get anything crazily wrong.
No, I don't think so either, considering this is the fan vote. There's not many in here that are like pretty egregious, other than one sort of weird one, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that one sort of goes with this one meme I got. I think this sort of explains the National League lineup right now.
Yeah, you sent that one to me, and I was like, huh.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can look at the
But you can't
reserves. We'll
guess who
go
it is.
we'll go back to the AL, and you can sort of see the same thing. You can use that meme again right here. We'll start with the pitchers. I have them on our rundown section off between starters, relievers, catchers, infielders, and outfielders. So we can start with the starters. We got Luis Castillo, Garrett Cole, Nathan Eovaldi, Kevin Gaussman, Sonny Gray, Michael Lorenzen, Shane McClanahan, Shohei Ohtani, Framber Valdez, and then late addition George Kirby, who's replacing Framber Valdez on the roster. I'll just flash the meme up again because I feel like this is the most egregious example of the clown guy. Yeah, I mean, first off, is there anybody that you're like, dang, how did that guy get here?
Other than the very, very obvious one, Jake, no. But everyone knows why Michael Lorenzen is an all star, and it's because every team has to have their little participation trophy, and they
Yep.
get an all star. And Michael Lorenzen and his very, very mid to bad stats, he's been not great. He gets to be the all star for them
Yeah.
because they have to have one.
I really think that there are other options here. I mean, I think if
Mhm.
Riley Green had
Riley
been
Green, yeah.
healthy, he would have probably had the opportunity. I think Miguel Cabrera will get that legacy vote like he did last year with Pujols.
I could see that.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the offense is awful. I mean, I don't think there's anybody really deserving there, but I think Alex Lang might have been a better choice.
Yes.
He has been pretty solid this year. He slowed down from the beginning of the year, but 3.89 ERA, 12 saves on a pretty bad team. And Lorenzen's got a 4.28 ERA, not striking out a ton of guys, 62 guys in 82 innings. He's just been pretty mediocre, like average starting pitcher. Not somebody that you look at and you're like, okay, yeah, I could see him being the best player on his own team. I think it's been pretty clearly Lang, and you could even make the case for someone like Jason Foley, who's like a setup guy there. So he doesn't have the save numbers, but he's been a better reliever than Lang this year. But yeah, it's I don't know, pretty crazy that somebody like Lorenzen gets in, but he can hang his hat on that, former two-way player.
Absolutely. I said, what did Eduardo Rodriguez get hurt? Because he's been better than
Yeah, he
him
was
for the
hurt for a
season too.
while.
He's still worth more F4 than Michael Lorenzen,
Yeah, he
despite
just
hardly
got back
playing.
today. He got beat by the A's.
Yeah, that's he's still worth double the F4 that Michael Lorenzen's worth.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the most notable guys to get in there. That is sort of not really necessarily an all-star, but I think there were a lot of snubs on the American League pitching side. I had some
Mm-hmm.
written down because I think when looking at these rosters, the American League is stacked with pitching and the National League is stacked with hitting. And I mean, guys that missed out on the All-Star game. So I guess that's more so in general, but there's lots of pitchers that you could say deserve to be on this roster. I think Jordan Romano is one of them. He's like way up there in I think he's tied for the American League lead in saves. He's been really great. Yohan Duran has had a really great season for the Twins. His ERA is well below 2 right now. And then I think the most egregious in terms of relievers is Carlos Estevez. We haven't gotten down to the relievers. I guess I'll just name them off: Felix Bautista, Yennier Cano, Emmanuel Clase, and Kenley Jansen. I really think Carlos Estevez should have gotten the vote there. He's got 21 saves and a 1.85 ERA with a near 30% strikeout rate. He's been great for the Angels, one of the best closers in general this year. Numbers definitely better than Romano, despite the 4 point difference in saves. But yeah, I think that's those guys definitely should have gotten in, and even others like Joe Ryan and Tyler Wells and Bailey Ober, pretty egregious ones there.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Tyler Wells. I think Tyler Wells is pretty rough to leave him out. Chris Martin, or not Chris Martin, and then potentially even Clay Holmes. Both of them have been pretty good reliever-wise, and they gave 2 Orioles relievers a spot. Carlos Estevez kind of sucks that they had to leave him out. Kenley Jansen getting a spot is very goofy to me. I understand
he's also
that
the only Red Sox.
that is true, but I feel like they probably could have had a better choice there. I mean, Verdugo's having a pretty strong season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't know.
I would have rather had Masataka Yoshida in there instead of
I would have too.
yeah.
I mean, you could argue for the Rangers. I know they had a cajillion guys gets, but you could honestly argue Dane Dunning maybe deserved a spot. But I wouldn't. And then another one that I maybe go to bat for is Josh Naylor. I think Josh Naylor potentially deserved an All-Star spot.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we that'll just help us move right into the hitting then. The catchers for the reserves for the American League are Salvador Perez and Adley Rutschman. I think that's pretty fair. Salvi is the lone representative for the Royals, and there was slim pickings there. In terms of infielders, we got Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Whit Merrifield, Jose Ramirez, and a late addition in Wander Franco, who was originally the biggest bust by miles. And then in the outfield, we got Yordan Alvarez, Adolis Garcia, Austin Hayes, Luis Robert Jr., Brent Rooker, and late additions Kyle Tucker and Julio Rodriguez. I think there's one thing that stands out, and it's, I think, Whit Merrifield, because he's sort of only on there because he was one of the finalists, which I think MLB sort of shoots themselves in the foot by making sure that the finalist runner-ups still make the All-Star team, which is, I don't know. I guess I'm fine with that, but it is sort of like, okay, there's so much being decided on by the fans, and like this whole game is for the fans, but All-Star voting, like that has an effect on people's contracts, you know? Like people are missing out on bonuses by not getting All-Star votes. I mean, that's gonna not only in terms of bonuses, but future contracts and arbitration cases and everything. So it's a lot more serious than we like to take on, and putting it all in the hands of the fans is somewhat controversial, but I think there's a good crowd here. Is there anybody that you still think is missing from this crew?
Hitting wise, Josh Naylor is the one that immediately sticks. He has stats this year are better than Vlad Jr.'s.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those guys, like we talked about it the last couple of pods. The Jays always get a bunch of guys in like the All-Star game just because they have a literal entire country for.
Yep.
That's why they need another team. That's genuinely why they need another team. One of the multitude of reasons I'm wearing the Expos hat, of course, but like they need another team. The entire country is voting for the Jays that like watches baseball. Hitter wise, I think this one was a little bit more clear cut than like the pitchers on the AL side, other than like Whit Merrifield. And then they got Wander Franco in, which was good. Yeah, I think that's probably solid enough for me. Is there anyone that you were thinking of?
Well, now that I'm thinking of it, maybe they don't automatically put the runner-ups in, because who is the runner-up to Josh Young?
I don't know.
It was Matt Chapman.
That's right. And he didn't get in.
Matt Chapman's not on here, and he's also 14th in the American League in F4 among hitters, tied for 13th. I wouldn't call him a snub. I don't think he had like an incredible first half. He really started off hot, but he's been cold the past couple of months. But then why is Whit Merrifield in there? Is it like I feel like there's something where they're going off some kind of fan vote, because I mean Whit Merrifield is nowhere near the leaderboard in terms of WAR, which I mean that's not an end all be all. He has been good in the stolen bases. He's batting nearly 300. He's doing Whit Merrifield stuff, but nothing that's like all-star level. Nothing that would initially have kept out Wander Franco, who like that's the biggest. That might be one of the biggest snubs of all time. I put his stats on there for in a tweet, putting his MLB ranks before he was added to the All-Star team. He was third in Baseball Reference WAR in MLB, not in just the American League. So he's trailing like Shohei Ohtani and Ronald. He's third with 4.2 Baseball Reference WAR, tied for third with 3.7 Fangraphs WAR, third with 26 stolen bases, tied for fifth with 4 triples, tied for 10th with 90 hits, tied for 12th with 21 doubles, and tied for 13th among qualifiers with 44 strikeouts. I mean, just super egregious. And luckily he was like one of the first guys to be added to the roster later on. But I mean, that can't really be forgiven initially, especially if they're not beholden to having the runner-ups be on the roster. But yeah, that was pretty egregious. I would sort of like to talk about Brent Rooker.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a guy that's now on like the short side of a platoon on the worst team in baseball history.
Like
Um,
who else do you pick for that spot though, other than
yeah,
Rooker? Like, I mean, the options like Esteury Ruiz, but he's honestly been a net negative other than stealing bases. Like he's an
yeah,
awful fielder. He doesn't hit for any power. He swings a wet noodle. Ryan Noda is maybe a
yes.
pretty decent shout.
Hmm.
Um, how's Trevor May looking this year? I don't really know
Scared. He
much
was
else.
injured for a while, and it was not an injury; it was a mental health injury.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was out for a while, and yeah, the rest of their rotation is pretty not great. JP Sears has been all right. JP Sears has been
Yeah.
better than Michael Lorenzen. um, but yeah, I
What
think
a
I would
big
have gone with
accomplishment, Jake.
yeah, I think I would have gone with Ryan Noda. I mean, Brent
Yeah.
Rooker had a really great first half, and he does have 14 home runs, but Noda is like one of the best walkers in all of baseball. So
19% is wild.
yeah,
Wow.
he's really got a great plate discipline. He's really good at walking. He's a pretty solid hitter. And this was a guy I wrote an article about earlier in the offseason, talking about like the best Rule 5 draft picks. And I had him as like the number one most impactful for this year. And that's sort of played out. But yeah, I think Esteury deserves some love. I mean, he's leading baseball in steals, and Noda's like leading baseball in walk percentage. And Brent Rooker just sort of had a hot April that's survived a little bit. He does lead the team with 14 home runs, but he's fallen off in many other departments. But I think there are cases for others. It's just crazy that now you look at like the roster resource for the A's and Brent Rooker is on the bench. It's like, oh, that's our all-star on the worst team in baseball, one of the worst teams in baseball history. And
The
our
guy can't even
all-star is a
play.
bench player. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the only other two options you really have are like Esteury Ruiz, Ryan Noda, and then
Mm-hmm.
funnily enough, I was looking at their team ranks
Mm-hmm.
on Fangraphs, and who do you think is leading them for F4 for pitchers?
I would say JP Sears.
You'd be wrong.
Really?
You would be wrong. He's third.
Third?
He's third.
What?
Yeah, he's third, man.
Is it a reliever?
No.
What?
Paul Blackburn currently leads them in F4
From
despite making
36 innings.
7 starts.
What?
He's got 0.8 F4. Their pitching leader for the entire season is Paul Blackburn, who has made 7 starts and is
He
thrown
just
36
he
innings.
just returned last month.
Yep. And JP Sears is actually tied for second with Sam Mole and Mason Miller.
Yeah, make Paul Blackburn a 2-time All-Star.
You should. I feel like if Mason Miller didn't get hurt, it's Mason Miller by a lot.
That
But
would have been sick. Yeah, he's been long gone.
yeah, Paul Blackburn and Michael Lorenzen would make for an absolutely excellent little bit in the back end of this little pitching staff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably it for
American
them.
League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
All
think
right.
it's
Well,
really funny that like did the Royals didn't get a normal pitcher. They only got one in the reserves, right?
no, they got Salvador Perez.
I know, but I'm saying they only got one player in the reserves. Like they don't. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, they didn't have a
And
starter. If
no
that's true.
starters.
Correct. Yeah.
It might
No,
be
I mean
worse
the
than the
Royals
A's
are
this
just as
year.
bad. I mean, they're worse than the A's because they're trying to win. The A's are
Yeah,
trying to lose, and they're doing that. But the Royals are like, oh yeah, we're
the
trying to
Royals
win.
are trying to
We
not
are
suck, and they're as bad as the A's.
absolutely terrible. I know, it's crazy. Not talked about
sucks.
enough. I
Jazz
do
team.
think Julio was sort of an interesting addition. I think there were better options to add on. Like Julio's a big star, and it's in Seattle, so I get like that whole thing. He's going
Yeah,
to be in the home run derby,
sure.
and we'll get to that later. But there were definitely better options. He's good with the glove, but WARs and everything, especially for all-star voting. I think there were definitely better options. Masataka Yoshida, Josh
yeah.
Naylor. Yeah, I think there were
Yoshida
better.
should have got it over Julio.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely a lot of options there that I think I would have put over him. But Julio's like, Julio's a great player. I love Julio, and it's in Seattle, so great to have him there. But we can move on to the National League reserves. We'll start with the pitchers again. The starters, we've got Bryce Elder, Zach Gallen, Josiah Gray, Mitch Keller, Clayton Kershaw, Justin Steele, Spencer Strider, and Marcus Stroman. And the relievers, we've got Alexis Diaz, Camilo Doval, Josh Hader, Devin Williams, and the late addition David Bednar. I think pretty solid crew. Like I said, it's sort of flip flop on which side are more stacked for the American League and National League. So American League sort of has deeper pitching staff, and National League more shallow on that end. But the relievers are pretty deep on that end. And David Bednar was definitely an early snub before he was one of the first additions to the team when Clayton Kershaw was announced to be on the IL. But is there anybody that stands out as sort of like, well, how did this guy get on here, or any snubs you got? Yeah, well, who else did you have for the Nats?
Lane Thomas or Jeimer Candelario.
Yes.
But either one of those would have been a whole lot better because what's Candelario worth war-wise? Candelario's been an excellent fielder. He's been like one of the best fielders at third, and he's been hitting again. Lane Thomas was also, I think he was fourth in all of baseball for F4 for right fielders, I feel like. Lane Thomas has been really good. Yeah, Candelario is worth 2.6, where he's got 118 WRC plus while being a standout defender at third. Like, he's hitting again, and he's going to be like one of the big rental bats at the deadline. And then Lane Thomas, if I could spell his name right to look up what he said, but he's been really good this year for a Nats team that is complete garbage.
301, 14 home runs, 7 steals.
Yeah, he's been really good. Big Lane Thomas fan, but Candelario is worth more WAR than him. I would probably go with either of those two because Josiah Gray had no business getting on this list. I don't know how he did, other than the fact that they need. He's better than Lorenzen, but I really don't know if it's by a lot.
It sort of is if you're looking at surface numbers. 3.30 ERA, 86 strikeouts in 95 innings. That's much better than Lorenzen in terms of surface numbers. Not that I think Josiah Gray is going to keep up a sub 3.5 ERA throughout the second half, but I mean those are definitely numbers closer to all-star level than an ERA barely under 4.5. But yeah, I definitely think Lane Thomas, who's broken out this year in full, and Jeimer Candelario has been very solid. But I think I would have gone Lane Thomas for the Nationals instead of Gray. But it's hard to argue because there's such a deep offensive staff for the National League. What did you think about Bryce Elder? I guess we can do our meme now.
Yeah, put the Bryce Elder meme on there. Bryce Elder is the fakest good pitcher in all of baseball right now.
Crazy.
He's Mike Leake, but I don't know. I don't understand how he's consistently doing well because none of his underlying numbers are good. It's like that one year where Cal Quantrill was really good for no reason.
Years, you mean?
He had like a 2 ERA and like a 5 FIP, and like a 5.5 xFIP, and he didn't strike anybody out. And there was no reason he was doing good other than like Devil Magic was just sort of propping him up. Yeah, Bryce Elder is a goofy one to have. But Spencer Strider sort of got rocked the last few starts he's had. He his last few has been recant that. His last few have been okay. He had a stretch where he was pretty bad that sort of looked really rough on him. He gave like 8 runs like the Mets or something like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like it would have been Strider here because I don't know.
Well, he's in.
Did he?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I think Elder's definitely in on his surface numbers, which, you can't argue with. I mean, that's what actually happened. I mean, he does it all by ground balls. He's 10th among starters in ground ball rate. So he's really good at getting ground balls, which I know that's usually pretty solid way of having success without striking out a lot of guys. But yeah, this probably won't last. His xFIP is right around 4 to go with a 2.5 ERA. So, I mean, that's a 1.5 difference. But yeah, I saw that and I was just like, damn, that's pretty funny that after all of this, Bryce Elder is getting into the All-Star game. But you know what? Good for him. And glad to see the Yinzer Supreme get in the All-Star game as well.
One of my favorite baseball players. I love David Bednar. I hope good things happen to David Bednar forever.
Yeah. All right. We can move to the offensive side, and we got some other interesting choices here. Catchers, we got Elias Diaz and Will Smith. Infielders, we got Ozzie Albies, Pete Alonso, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, and Dansby Swanson. And then the outfielders, we got Nick Castellanos, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Juan Soto, and Jorge Soler. And so this is where I think that I got more so the impression that like more so the confirmation that the runner-ups for the finalists
Mhm.
were included, because Lourdes Gurriel is not an all-star, not even close. I mean, even less so than Whit Merrifield has been, especially even on his own team. There are better options in the outfield even. And I think Austin Riley was pretty borderline as well. So give me your thoughts on those two.
Yeah, those were not really ideal. Castellanos also getting in is a little weird to me.
Yes, I agree.
Um,
He's been pretty good, but I don't think it's definitely
I
not going
mean,
to last. But
he's been fine, but uh, I don't know. I wouldn't have had
I
him
mean, he's
in.
batting 312 with 12 home runs. So like he's been playing really well, but I think he's out of his shoes right now.
I think he is too, but I still would have probably rewarded one of the other players on your team, like Bryson Stott or Brandon Marsh, who have been consistently better players.
Brandon Marsh.
Brandon Marsh leads them in F4 for batters.
Wow, that's a lot of fielding.
Yeah, I mean he's been hitting too, though. Is the thing, like he's really streaky, but I mean he's still got seven home runs. He's hitting 276 with a 117 WRC plus. That's pretty good. Stott more or less like league average. He's tied with Castellanos on it, but his is more so the glove. Castellanos is such an awful fielder,
Yeah.
that it's sort of worrying. Let me look at the lists again really quick. They also probably could have had a pitcher in, because Zach Wheeler's worth like 3.5.
Yeah.
3.5 F4. He's been really
That's
good.
there's a lot of F help in there, the FIP.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a couple guys that I think like batter wise that got snubbed. Who do you think is the biggest snub? Because I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it.
I'm trying to pull up my list again. It keeps going away.
I've got a
Trying
few
to
guys.
remember. Mine were I think Ketel Marte was a big one, and we already talked about Lane Thomas. I think Paul Goldschmidt and Christian Yelich were pretty big as well. Christian Yelich is having an incredible year. He's 9th in
Yeah,
the
he
National
is.
League in F4 among hitters, and Paul Goldschmidt is 11th there. So I think both of those guys were big snubs. But I mean, Ketel, a pretty big snub as well. He's not as high in the F4 department. He's 22nd, but I mean, just replace him for Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who's like great guy. I definitely a clubhouse guy that you want out there, and he's not having a terrible season. He's batting 268, 14 home runs, but I mean that's not really all-star level numbers. And Ketel is batting 285 with 15 home runs, so sort of has him beat everywhere. But definitely Yelich, I think, is a big snub, having a big bounce back this year. 10 home runs, 20 steals. He's batting 284, 127 WRC plus, nearly 3 WAR. That's a pretty big snub for me.
Fernando Tatis Jr. I think was the biggest snub from this.
Sure. 6th in F4.
Yeah, Fernando Tatis Jr. Brandon Nimmo getting left off is a little crazy to me too. Spencer Steer or potentially Matt McClain, I feel like could have made it for the Reds.
Even Ellie.
Even Ellie could have made it, but I think Spencer Steer's their all-star for me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's excellent. And I like Alexis Diaz. He's been very good too.
Yes.
I like that Camilo Doval got in there, but I think the Giants also have a couple hitters that I would like to be rewarded, and Lamont Wade is probably one. He's currently walking about 18% of the time. He strikes out about 18% of the time, which is really fun. But also, very quietly, Tyro Estrada has been very, very good as well. I think he's worth like 2.7 F4 or something like that. He's been really good. Yeah, he's worth 2.6, 108 WRC plus, which isn't that bad. But he's got 18 steals, 9 home runs, and he's been playing really good defense. I would like to see a couple more guys like that be rewarded. But Tatis is 5th in F4 and he got left off. Goldschmidt is 10th and he got left off. I saw a couple people trying to make an argument for someone like a Lindor. Did Lindor make it on?
Yeah,
he did. Lindor probably should not have made it on, in my opinion.
Oh, did he?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't make it.
He's not an all-star. But no, I saw a couple of those. The argument being made. Of course, the big joke with the NL All-Star team is that Orlando Arcia is their starting shortstop, which is crazy. And I understand that he's been good in the little stretch that he's had, but he's also not played the full season. And the Braves got their entire infield voted in, which is really dumb. They had their entire infield plus Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson make the All-Star game.
Braves
Dansby
voters
Swanson,
go Burr.
Dansby Swanson currently, let me look. So Dansby Swanson's leading all NL shortstops in F4. And he is a reserve that may or may not get in a bat. So like,
Yeah.
that's so stupid for that. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen a couple more. Like we talked about Candelario and Lane Thomas too. Those are big snubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe even did Ha-Seong Kim get on?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I would maybe
Yeah.
have that one. And then
What do you?
on the Lourdes one, Lourdes Gurriel is not even. He could have been ousted by 2 of his teammates. Ketel Marte and Christian Walker have both been a lot better than him.
Yeah.
And he got it. Why? That's so garbage.
That's what made me think it's like you're locked into it if you're a runner-up, but then where is Matt Chapman? So I don't really know what's going on there. I thought it was pretty crazy to see Elias Diaz on here. I mean, he's the only Rockies. Yeah, the Rockies need somebody, and there are so few options. It's crazy. He's got 0.7 F4 this year, 95 WRC plus. 0.7 F4 is less than Michael Lorenzen, who is at 0.8. It's less than Brent Rooker, who's at 1.2. It's less than Salvador Perez. Oh, no, it's not. Salvador Perez is worst all-star, 0.3.
Wow.
Whit Merrifield, really it's less than Whit Merrifield, who's at 1.2. It's less than Lourdes, who's at 1.4. I mean, there were some interesting all-stars, but I think Elias Diaz, probably one of them. I mean, he's definitely carrying a lot of it by being like a league average defensive catcher, but I mean, playing in Coors, batting like 280 with 9 home runs, pretty mediocre offensively. Just, yeah, I mean, that's crazy that's their best option.
He's not even their best qualified hitter by like anything, like especially like by F4 or anything like that. They also have a couple relievers I feel like could have got some shine, which would have been awesome to see a Rockies reliever be an all-star.
Yeah.
Jake Bird and Justin Lawrence have both been really good. But also they have Ryan McMahon, who's hit 13 home runs. And, he's still not good, but the Rockies don't really have much to pick from, do they?
Yeah, and then also just like the roster construction of like making sure you get a catcher on there.
That's true. That's basically the only reason he got in.
Yeah. Well, congrats to him.
Yeah, congrats, Elias Diaz, for being an all-star. Hopefully the Rockies will give you a $400 gajillion contract because they have an all-star catcher.
All right. Well, we're going to be watching that all-star game next week, and we'll be watching them in the following jerseys. Let me put them on the screen. Woo!
Oh God, I actually haven't seen them up until now, and I wish I hadn't because they are ugly. I really hate the new like trend, and it's been the last few years of them wearing just these jerseys. I liked it a lot better when they just wore their normal jerseys for whatever it was, and they had like the all-star hat. I thought that was a lot better. What do you think?
Yeah. I also liked when they wore their jerseys. I think there is room for like having cool ones now.
Yeah,
but
they could.
They're sort of hit or miss. Do you remember what they were last year, where they were like gray or white and gold?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, they were all right, but it sort of
didn't
really fit with where even was it? Dodgers? Yeah, they were pretty boring. But still like interesting jerseys. I think those were going more so for like we want fans to buy these, where it's like you don't look at them and you're just like, oh, that was the all-star game at the Dodger Stadium. That's just like, oh, okay, that's a cool like golden and other color shirt. These are very clearly
the market for this. Like,
I don't know. These are very clearly Nationals or Mariners all-star jerseys, and I love the colors. I think the design is fine, but yeah, I think it's going to be like you don't really have people expressing themselves. I don't know what the hat situation is going to be, but I did like the old hats where they would do different stuff. I have the Giants hat from when they were all-star game was at the Red Stadium, and they sort of all had that design of the old Red hats. I can go grab it.
I don't know what that looks like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly like them. that much. The colors are cool, but like I just don't understand what the market for them is, because who's going to sit there and like actually buy and wear a jersey that just says American or national on it with like your favorite? Oh, I do remember those actually. I take it
Yeah.
back. Those are cool. I like
I
those.
can't wear this though because it's a flat bill hat, so I just look.
You look goofy. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Let's
pretty sweet.
go.
That's pretty sweet. That should
Let's
be your
get
new look.
All-Star game.
Should be your new look,
Yeah,
Jake. I
look like
like
a
that.
train conductor.
Yeah, choo choo. It's the baseball train. new podcast. Yeah, that's not it.
There we go.
Yeah.
All-Star game, baby.
Put it in Griffey mode. Yeah, I don't know. I hate the All-Star jerseys. They're stupid. I just don't understand why you would ever want to have them. Like, who's going to sit there and buy like, oh yeah, this is my favorite player in this weird green jersey like they wore one time.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I just don't get it. But
yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, it could have been worse. What was the year before? I don't know where they played, but these jerseys are ugly. I don't know how to describe them. They had like the logo, and then they just had like the letters vertically underneath it. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know. Lift up the computer and show you.
Oh yeah, I do. I'm looking at them right
2021?
now. Yeah, they were blue and they
those were
lettering.
so terrible.
Those
yeah, those were so bad.
Those are terrible.
That was in Colorado, of course. It was terrible.
Of course. You know, the only ones that were cool were the year they had the orange and the blue ones. Those were sweet. The ones when they were in Miami.
Yes, yes.
Those were cool. I'll
Those
give
were
it
sick.
I'll give it that one. Those were lit. Really like those. But other than that, they're pretty terrible. Have them do like I don't know. Have them do like special ones. Make them like the players. Make them like the Players Weekend ones. We talked about the City Connect like either a podcast or two ago with the Pirates one and said it was terrible. The Yankees have actually basically said that they're not going to do a City Connect, but I think if they I think Steinbrenner is probably not going to do it because he's an old fogey. But
loser.
I think if they do, they should do something like their their Players Weekend one where it was a solid black. I loved the Players Weekend, and I would love to see the All-Star Game do something like that instead if they're not going to bring Players Weekend back.
Yeah, market the players.
Yeah, like let them have fun, do the cool cleats, do like actually good jerseys like that, or have this like the specific player or like the Players Weekend jerseys or something like that for each individual team. Let them wear their own team's jersey, but let it be something different, like sort of like a riff on it. Or maybe if the team has a City Connect, wear the City Connect. I think that would be pretty cool. But I don't really like the whole deal with wearing the All-Star jerseys. I liked it a lot better when it was just the team's individual jersey. But I think they could have fun with it and make it their own.
Definitely. Yeah, well, I guess it's time to look back on the month of June.
Absolutely. Since it is now July 5th, we can talk about the June month in review, and we'll run down the league leaders and all the statistical categories, counting stats, all sorts of things. And we'll start with the league leaders in batting average, and there's going to be some names that will be repeated. Like this one in the AL, the batting average leader for the month of June is Shohei Ohtani, because of course it was.
Yeah, absolutely incredible month for him. He leads like every single category except for stolen bases. So huge month for Shohei, sort of solidifying himself as the MVP if he wasn't already. I think that this is going to be remembered as one of the best months in the history of baseball.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani can't lead in steals because he's too busy hitting dingers.
Yeah.
Can't steal any bases, hit them all out of the park. And then the league leader for batting average in the NL is, no surprise, it's Luis Arias, still on his quest to hit 400.
Yeah, he hit 400 in June, like you said, 406, but 387 now on the year. I think it's out of the question now, but yeah, still a pretty incredible year for him. Yeah, just an incredible first half for Arias, and glad to see that he got elected to the All-Star game because he likely doesn't have a shot in the MVP race if he doesn't hit 400.
Put him in the home run derby.
Well, we already got that field set.
Dang. But yeah, and then repeat here. Also, league leader in runs for the month of June. The AL is Shohei Ohtani with 27. And the
Yep.
NL, Ketel Marte paced him 30 runs for scalding hot Diamondbacks offense during the month of June.
Yeah, it's been a big bounce back for Marte, who dealt with some injuries the past couple of years, but also sort of sucked last year. I mean, he wasn't terrible. But he was definitely not the guy that we remembered from 2019 when he first broke out, which definitely seems like a juice ball produced year when he hit 32 home runs. That year was worth 6 WAR, but I still think he was a better hitter than that. We saw in 2021 prior to the injuries he dealt with that year. He batted 318. He had 14 home runs, looking like a guy that could be like a full season 25 home run, 300 hitter. And last year it was like 240 and 12 home runs, and that was in almost 140 games. So I think there was a lot of underperformance there, but he's bounced back this year, looking like the Ketel Marte that the Diamondbacks thought he would be for a long time when they signed him to a contract extension prior to 2023. That was this year. Yeah, he's going to be around through 2028 as long as they exercise his club option. And he's been great this month and this year, and definitely one of the biggest all-star snubs.
Yeah, definitely. He's rocking that specifically because he is tearing the cover off the ball as a lefty. Have you looked at his splits?
I have not.
I'll see if I can't pull him up really quick. I saw
as a lefty or versus lefties?
As a lefty.
Which is weird because he's always been the other side splits.
Let's see if I can't find it on Fangraphs. I had it pulled up and then I clicked off of it and I don't have it anymore.
As a lefty, he's got a 130 WRC plus 138 versus lefties.
Yeah,
so
he's doing
both sides. Are you talking about just in June?
Yeah.
I don't even think I can do.
He was ridiculous in June.
I can look at just for June, but not from each side of the plate.
There was an article on Fangraphs. It's by Esteban Rivera. Yeah, if you haven't done that, you should go give it a read. But yeah, he's got a 138 WRC plus so far, just as a lefty. He's been ridiculous also just in the month of June, obviously scoring 30 runs, but he's been really, really good. And it's mainly because he's lifting the ball more. His launch angle has gone up, which means more home runs. And Arizona is kind of a cavern. So you had a bunch of doubles, pretty good amount of home runs. It's good hitter's park. Yeah. Ketel Marte, sort of a return to form. And then the home run league leaders, getting tired of saying the guy's name, said nobody ever. It's Shohei Ohtani. He hit 15 home runs just in the month of June. They need to do something to handicap him, I think, at this point. Make him hit with a hand behind his back or something, because he's just ridiculous. 15 Ding Dong Johnsons in the month of June, and then Matt Olson hit a lowly 11.
Yeah, Matt Olson's been incredible this year. I think he could set a career high in home runs. I think he might finally reach 40 after multiple seasons of around 35. He had 39 in 2021, but yeah, he's been looking incredible this year. I think he leads baseball in barrel rate. He's at 20.2%, and he's one of the best in hard hit rate. I think he leads baseball in max exit velocity as well, 118.6 miles per hour. So he's definitely got all of the power statistics. He's striking out more, so sort of selling out for power, but I think that's sort of been fine because the batting average has kept up somewhat. He's batting 250, but I think he's going to be around 250, but he's going to clear 40 home runs pretty easily. He makes it look so easy when he hits home runs. He's just got such a smooth swing. It makes it look super easy to just hit bombs, and that Braves lineup is incredible.
Yes, it is. And then we can just go ahead and repeat the same names for RBI, which is Shohei Ohtani with 29 and Matt Olson with 25.
Yep.
So moving on, we can talk about the stolen bases. And then these two guys also pretty much locked in names for this point in the AL with 13 steals, leading the entire league is Esteury Ruiz of the Oakland Athletics with 13, and then Ronald Acuna Jr. swiped 14, beating him out.
Wild. Yeah, both of these guys with 40 steals prior to the All-Star break. Pretty ridiculous. Esteury, 42 steals and 1 home run. And then Ronald Acuna, 41 steals and 21 home runs. Yeah, pretty not non-similar players in all but the speed. I think Ruiz is much faster, but it's crazy that Acuna has been able to steal this much without having the same elite sprint speed that Esteury Ruiz has, and having torn his ACL just a couple of years ago. But yeah, both of these guys, best swipers in baseball, and it's cool to see Esteury Ruiz actually like being somewhat of a positive addition to the A's after their whole Sean Murphy trade fiasco.
Hey, Jake, you want a cool stat?
No, probably not.
Ronald Acuna Jr. in the month of June struck out less than the amount of bases he stole. He struck out 13 times the entire month, and he stole 14 bases.
That's not really, I don't think that's really fair.
Yeah, that guy's cheating. But the best part of him really is he's an incredibly smart base runner, and I feel like he's taking advantage of that. Did you see the clip of him stealing third, basically uncontested? He's done that a couple times, where he's just taking an extra bag when he's given the opportunity to, and they keep giving him the opportunity, so he's going to keep doing it. And it's just good. Ronald is really, really good, and it's a shame that like it feels like he's getting some credit, but also he's having this completely insane season, and it's still sort of being overshadowed.
Yeah.
Like it still feels like they talk about the Braves and not Ronald Acuna Jr. because Ronald Acuna Jr. is just part of them. But like, no, he's having a really ridiculous season.
Definitely.
But yeah. And then back to OPS. This time, Shohei Ohtani beat everyone in this one. Shohei Ohtani with a 1.444 OPS in the AL, and then Eddie Rosario with a 1.115 in the NL.
That one's definitely surprising. He's been pretty bad for a long stretch now. I know he had surgery on his eyes so that he could see better, and it took a while before he got used to that, but he finally did this past month. 193 WRC plus in June, batted 325, hit 9 home runs. I mean, that's more so like the Eddie Rosario we remember from 2020 and before then. He's currently having one of the best seasons of his career offensively. 111 WRC plus is just shy of his career high of 117 set back in 2017. So it's cool to see him do that. And if he keeps up this hot streak, then I think he should surpass that easily, because clearly been much better this month than he has at any point in recent memory. So it's cool to see him back. Sort of unfortunate though, because of course the Braves don't need anybody else. And it's just like their weakest link, left field, is now one of the best hitters in the National League and was the best in terms of OPS in June.
Yeah, their lineup is a Death Star. It's just crazy. Do you want a cool fact about Eddie Rosario, Jake?
Let's hear it.
Eddie Rosario is the only active player in baseball to have hit 15 or more triples in a season.
That's a lot of triples. That was his rookie year. Wow.
Rookie year, 15 triples. He hasn't I don't think he's hit more than 3 since.
He has not hit more than 3 since then. 15. Wow. That's wild.
He went from like his contract looking like really one of the worst in baseball to like it looks pretty good now when he's actually hitting. It's like he's not a good fielder. And then he's like a super streaky hitter, but when he's really hot, he is really, really hot, which we've seen now in the month of June. And we saw, of course, on their run to winning the World Series a couple years ago. And then F4 leaders, we have Shohei Ohtani with 2.8 F4 in the month of June, which is stupid, which is more than a lot of baseball players. It's more than a large amount of his contemporaries on the All-Star team combined.
Yeah.
Like,
that's like 18 for a full season. 2.8
F4. Michael Lorenzen had 0.8 F4 for the entire season, and he gets to be on the same All-Star team second.
16.8 F4 pace for the full season.
Nah, casual. That's like the most by a mile, I think.
No, somebody's had 20.
Who had 20?
The guys that threw like 600 innings in the 1800s.
Those don't count. Those
Tim
guys
Keefe,
didn't.
Old Hoss Radbourne.
Well, he counts.
They were like 2 pitchers. They had 2 pitchers on the team, and one of them threw 600 innings.
Well, Old Hoss Radbourne
game every time.
Old Hoss Radbourne, they only had the one pitcher.
Exactly. He would pitch every game. He'd throw 600 innings a year. He'd throw 60 starts or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, those don't count. That's so stupid. Those guys
Those are
played.
crazy.
Those guys
The
played
fact
when
that
you
he's
could ask
close to
them.
those guys, though.
That's true. Those guys played when you could ask them to throw you a high ball or a low ball, and if they
Yeah.
didn't throw it to you, I think you got to shoot them with a flintlock pistol or something. Yeah, those guys don't count. And then Fernando Tatis Jr. compared to Shohei Ohtani has a measly 1.9 F4 for the month of June, which is still extremely good. But
Yeah.
Ohtani
He
just
got off.
makes all these other guys. Have you ever seen like The Longest Yard, the movie where he's like, they talk about LL Cool J's character, and they're like, or it's Nelly's character. I'm an idiot. It's Nelly's character, and they're like, yeah, he's fast. He's so fast. He makes fast guys look not fast. That's what Shohei Ohtani does to other great baseball players. He just makes their
Very
accomplishments look measly in comparison.
Yeah, incredible season so far from Tatis. Great to see him come back and sort of silence the haters about the performance enhancing drugs. And while I don't think he didn't do PEDs, I do think that it was more so to like get healthy again, not to increase his performance in a way that we see from like Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa or Roger Clemens, guys like that who are like taking their game to another level. This was just so that he could get back on the field faster. And while can't really give him a break for that, can't really give him a pass, I'm glad to see that he's proving everybody wrong. Like, hey, I'm actually really good at baseball, and I just made a stupid mistake trying to come back from an injury so I could help in the playoffs.
Yeah, I really agree with everything with what you said about him. It's still tough to forgive that from him for me, but I don't think he did it out of a malicious thing. I think he's honestly was just an idiot. I really don't think he was trying to cheat the game. I think he was just trying to hurry back, and he just kind of looks like an idiot and sort of hurt his legacy. But he's still obviously an excellent baseball player. He's like what did we say earlier? 5th in all of baseball in F4, and he started like 20 or 30 games behind. That he still had to serve for a suspension. He's just a still ridiculous baseball player. Went from being a very good shortstop to just instantly one of the best, if not the best, right fielder in baseball. Not named Mookie Betts, of course, which he's trying to beat him out too, which is just crazy to me. But yeah, Fernando Tatis Jr. It's good to have him back. Still probably the biggest all-star snub that I could possibly think of now that Wander Franco got his spot. And then moving on to the pitching side of things. In the AL, we have Kevin Gausman, 4 wins. He's been insanely good this year. And then a big surprise here for the NL, Taijuan Walker. Signed a big contract with the Phillies. We're paying it with 5 wins.
Yeah, and they were all in a row to close out the month. He lost his first start in June on the 1st and then closed it out with 5 straight wins. And even so, with that first loss, 1.50 ERA in the month, 34 strikeouts and 36 innings. Pretty solid. Not gonna expect it to keep up. It comes with a 4 xFIP, so it's a pretty big difference. But I mean, this is what Taijuan Walker does. Sometimes his splitter's doing well. Sometimes he gets lucky on balls in play. Sometimes he faces the A's and has a good start or two. He faced the A's and the Tigers in this month. So that's definitely pretty lucky. Yeah. But yeah, that's Taijuan Walker for you, and that's the wins. That'll tell you a lot about the wins stat.
Yeah, pitcher wins are something else. But Kevin Gausman also in the AL. I mean, I think he has a realistic chance to compete for the AL Cy Young, if not potentially as one of the front runners right now. This is a weird year because it doesn't feel like there are very many super clear cut guys for the Cy Young.
Yeah. Definitely can agree with that. Gausman definitely is going to be in that race, especially if he keeps having all these big strikeout games. He had 3 starts of double-digit strikeouts in June. 3. I was just including one of his other starts. He had one of 11, one of 12, and one of 13, and he had a 2.97 ERA in the month, 50 strikeouts across 36 innings. Pretty incredible. Yeah, I think Gausman is one of the best pitchers in baseball. Definitely has the best splitter in baseball. A lot of fun to watch. Glad to see he's still underperforming his xFIP, but that's sort of what he gets playing in a turf ballpark with not the best defense behind him. But yeah, Gausman's definitely going to be on that conversation in the end of the year.
Definitely. And we go from Kevin Gausman to talk about his teammate and one of Jake's big all-star snubs, Jordan Romano, who led the AL in saves with 12, led all of baseball for the month of June with those 12. And then hometown boy for Jake, Camilo Duvall.
Yeah. Romano had half of his saves on the season in just June alone. So definitely a huge month for him. He's up to 25 now. He added one in July, but he's had a really great season this year. And while it's not really at the same caliber that he did the last 3 years, it's in line with the XFIP and stuff. So he's definitely just regressing that you would naturally see. But with the Blue Jays being really good and winning a lot of close games, Romano's been pretty lucky in that regard. So he's definitely one of the better relievers in baseball. And Doval has just been incredible this year. It's been a big breakout campaign for him. This year, we've seen him be really good in the past, but this is the first year where it's like he is the closer and he's pitching like one last year, 2.53 ERA and 27 saves. He's already at 24 saves. He's got a 2.77 ERA. He's striking out a career high, close to a career high. He's striking out 33% of batters. Just really incredible this year. It's been cool to see, and he's still only 25. So I'm excited to see how high he can climb amongst the Giants greats out of the bullpen.
Just imagine how good the Giants bullpen would be if they had actual relievers to try to turn the ball over to Camilo
Yeah,
Doval,
not just starters.
not just starters and weird long relievers and John Brebbia.
Yeah. We got the Rogers twins.
Yeah,
you got the forever.
Yeah, the opener, John Brebbia. Yeah, love that. And then the ERA leaders for the month, we finally don't have an Ohtani again right here. We have for the AL, James Paxton with a 1.74 ERA in the month of June. And then Eury Perez said, hey, watch this old man. And he posted a 0.32 ERA, pacing everybody by a lot. That guy, crazy.
Pretty really, crazy. Really yeah, it's been cool to see James Paxton come back. He sort of had 3 years destroyed by injury, just 21 and 2/3 innings across the past 3 years. Didn't pitch at all last year. And it's never really been a question about how good he is. It's just a question of health. And we've seen that this year. Been great for the Red Sox. And it's cool to see him back in baseball. I hope he can remain healthy throughout the year. And Eury Perez is he had an unprecedented start to his career and then had a blow up just recently, his first one. It did start the month of July, so it didn't really include that in his ERA there. He had a 6-run blow up on July 1st, but in June he was absolutely incredible. He allowed just 1 run across 28 innings. He struck out 35 batters, and he's really incredible. I think we talked about him last week or the week before, but yeah, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. I think he just needs a couple of years to stretch out and grow. He's still only 20 years old. He's going to be really great, especially with like Sandy being his mentor.
Yeah, definitely. I think we talked, I don't know if it was on the podcast, but I think we talked about Eury Perez potentially having his innings limited, and they might and they'll probably end up really resting him through most of the All-Star break and then maybe a little bit afterwards. But he's been excellent for a Marlins team that are trying to give the Braves a run for their money at the top of the division. That division's sort of been all over the place from where everyone thought it was going to be outside of the number 1 spot. But we can talk about that later because we have the whip leaders to talk about, which is also James Paxton for the AL because he had a 0.77 whip for the month. And then on the NL side, Blake Snell, who sort of had a bounce back from a rough start from the year in June with a 0.68 whip.
Yeah, he's been on a crazy run recently, going back to May 25th through his most recent start on July 3rd. He's tossed 47 innings. In that time, he's allowed 4 runs. He struck out 73 batters to just 19 walks. He's got a 0.77 ERA. He's been absolutely incredible. I mean, those numbers to go with a 3.03 ERA on the year shows how slow his start was. But yeah, incredible in June, incredible prior to June. Since June, he had a streak of 4 straight starts of at least 10 strikeouts. He had back-to-back 12 strikeout starts. Just an incredible run. We've seen this from Snell in the past, goes off in the second half. And to see him starting it off a little bit early, or sort of a lot of it early, if he can continue this run into the second half, I mean, there's going to be some conversation about Snell becoming a 2-time Cy Young Award winner.
Definitely. And he's one that I've always kind of like really liked. And it's really nice to watch him pitch when he's really on, because he's one of the pitchers that like really, really dominates hitters when his stuff is there. And those are always insanely fun to watch for me. Should be fun to watch for everybody that's not a fan of the team that he's pitching against. But yeah, he's been really good. And then we can just continue with a couple guys we've already talked about with the strikeouts leaders. Blake Snell leading all of baseball with 53. So, of course, he led the NL as well. And then Kevin Gausman just 3 behind with 50 in the AL. Do we really need to talk a lot more about these two guys? That's a shame because we're going to talk about him again because Blake Snell is right here leading all of baseball in the NL with pitcher F WAR with 1.5 throughout the month. And then in the AL, is it Brian Bayo?
Yep.
Yeah, Brian Bayo of the Boston Red Sox. He's a rookie, I believe, right?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
he was a rookie last year. I don't know if he still has.
I still think he's within his rookie limits
eligibility.
because he didn't pitch all that much last year.
No, he didn't.
So I think he's still within his rookie limits, but Brian Bayo had 1.2 F WAR, sort of been the anchor in that Boston Red Sox rotation along with Paxton, although they can never get him any run support, which is very annoying every time I stream him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it really quietly as well. I mean, he's been great the whole year, 3.08 ERA across 73 innings. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He's sort of Bryce Elder-esque, if I may say. But yeah, definitely quiet, great year. In June, he had a 2.14 ERA across 5 starts. Very solid. He gets a lot of ground balls. I think he's got a bright future. He's got a really good changeup. He's got a sinker that's averages 95, and I think he's got a deep enough repertoire to be really good. He's still pretty young as well. I think he's just 24, so I think he's got a bright future ahead of him, and it's cool to see him pacing American League pitchers in F4 in June.
Yeah, I also really like that he sort of had an uptick a little bit throughout the month because to start of the season, they weren't stretching him out very much. I think the most he was ever really going was 5 innings, and then you see him go deeper and deeper now that we're into June, and he's also striking out more guys. I think his lowest strikeout total in a single game in the month of June was 3, which I think might be tied for his low on the season, but that was also against the Yankees, like at Yankee Stadium, and that's a game that I'm pretty sure they won. He didn't get the win, but I'm pretty sure they won in general. But I mean, he had 2 5-strikeout games and then an 8-strikeout game also against the Yankees. So the strikeouts have gotten a little bit better. He just doesn't really have really huge put away pitches. But I really like him. I do think he has a bright future, especially in that rotation. And look at some of the names that he'll have to mentor him too. I mean, Chris Sale, James Paxton, those are 2 pretty good guys. Kenley Jansen too. Yeah, I forgot about him. And then even other guys that have been around the league for a long time. Chris Martin. I mean, when he's not singing for Coldplay, he's pitching for the Red Sox. So
that's right.
They'll lead him on the right path. So it's good to see. And that's all of our league leaders we have to run down. And we can talk about our division leaders with our standings check-in that we always do at the end of the month. Where do you want to start this time, Jake? AL or NL?
NL.
NL where?
West.
We're going to start with the NL West. Once I pull it up. The NL West. And, hey, it's like the Paul Rudd meme. It's like, who would have thought we'd be here? Not me. The Diamondbacks are leading the NL West. They are 50 and 36, followed closely behind by the Dodgers and the Giants at 47 and 38 and 46 and 40, respectively. That's a pretty tightly contested division. Padres are sort of a shit show. They'll have to get it on track. They're 40 and 46. And then the lowly Rockies, our favorite baseball team, 33 and 55.
Worse than the National League right there, baby.
Yeah, baby.
This division has a big chance of like being absolutely crazy in September if the Padres can turn it around and the Diamondbacks sort of fall back a bit and the Dodgers and Giants sort of hold steady. I mean, we could see like a 4-way race for first place here, and it's going to be pretty crazy to see. I wonder if any team is going to separate themselves or if one team is going to fall off and you can sort of have like a 2-team race there, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a really interesting division, but yeah, congrats to the D-backs. They've really been surprising this year.
Definitely. And we'll just go up. We'll go to the NL Central and then another one of the Paul Rudd memes. The red hot Cincinnati Reds are 48 and 39. The Reds are leading the NL Central with their young, exciting team, followed closely behind by the Brewers, who are 46 and 41, and then nobody cares about the rest of the division because they're terrible. Just for posterity's sake, the Pirates and the Cubs are 40 and 45. The Cardinals are 35 and 51. Roll the last place beam.
Let's go.
Never retiring, baby.
Yeah, great
Never,
meme.
not leaving. Never
Gotten so
leaving.
much
Cubs
gotten
and
so much
four.
out of it. Yeah, pretty crazy to see the Reds doing this. I mean, they have so much young talent. Did not expect it to all sort of come up this year and come together the way it has. But I think the craziest part is they're doing this without like Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo,
Mm-hmm.
and for a long time without Graham Ashcraft, and it's pretty crazy that they've been able to survive with just like an insane offense and a pretty solid bullpen. But I think this would be a really fun story. I'd love for them to make the postseason over the Brewers, so that would be a lot of fun. But I think it's also crazy to point out that like the Pirates were in first place and they seem to be doing exactly what we thought or doing exactly what the Reds are doing now. The Pirates were doing that in April, and it was like, oh my gosh, they're one of the best teams in the National League. They're going to like surprisingly win the division, and now they're tied for third place, looking towards fourth place, and the Reds have usurped them in that title.
Yeah, this division, up until the Reds have just decided that they're going to win it, this has been the division everyone's trying to lose because the Brewers can't. Like, the Brewers are insanely inconsistent either with their pitching or their hitting. Their lineup for the most part this year has been pretty bad. The Cubs actually got to within 2 games after the London series. They were 2 games out of first, and then they went on a skid and lost like 4 or 5 games in a row. They lost a couple series, and then they're just right back down to the doldrums. Cardinals are garbage and nobody cares about them. So they've been bad most of the year. They just can't figure it out. Who would have thought trying to cobble together a rotation full of 5 starters on every other baseball team wouldn't be good? Not me, but you know, what do we know? And then we can go on to the NL East, which is probably the most competitive. Well, I would say probably the most competitive. I don't think it's quite as competitive as the NL West, but it's trying its best. The NL East is currently led, like it kind of always is for the last few years, by the Atlanta Braves.
Yep.
They're a monstrous 58-28. They're leading they're leading all of baseball in wins now. But yeah, they are 58-28. They're actually followed relatively closely behind, given the circumstance, by the Marlins, who are 51-37. They're still 8 games back, which is wild, but the Marlins are ahead of the Phillies and the Mets. The Mets are closer to the Nationals than they are at the top of the division.
Yeah, I mean,
the Mets memes.
you mentioned the Marlins being just 8 games out. There is no third place team in the National League. There's no third place team in baseball that is more than 8 games out. And the Miami Marlins are the number 1 wild card seed. They're actually the second best team in the National League, and
That's
they are
crazy.
8 games back. Yeah, the Braves are really they're just pacing everything right now. It's pretty wild what's going on there. Yeah, I would expect the Phillies to sort of make a run. They've been looking a lot better in the second half. Bryce Harper's getting healthier, and I think
Realmuto's been hitting. Trey Turner's picked it up a little bit.
Yep.
And then their rotation has sort of steadied the course. I know Nola started the season very, very poorly, but he's gotten a little bit better. Zach Wheeler sort of carried the load. And then they got Ranger Suarez back. He's been helping out. But yeah, they've been better. They also got Jose Alvarado back at the start of the month, which has been a big help for them because their bullpen their bullpen went from like a weird flux where, okay, they had a pretty solid bullpen, and then Alvarado got hurt and they have to bump people up, which was weird. Like Kimbrel started closing out more games. They couldn't quite figure out their interim closer situation. So like the middle of their bullpen really sucked because they had to move all the ones that were there up later, which is super weird for them. But I think the Phillies will probably make a run for a wild card spot. They're not awful. They're the Phillies and they're doing Phillies stuff. The Mets certainly seem like a dumpster fire, and I honestly don't know if it's going to get much better for them.
Yeah.
And we can move on to the happier American League. We're also going to start with the West for this one, because we started with the West for the NL. And at the top of it is the Texas Rangers, who sort of cooled off a little bit, but they're still 51-36, just leading the division by 2 games, though, because the Astros are 49-38. Angels still in it with a shout. They're around 500, and I feel like this is probably going to be where they're going to sell out a lot of their farm trying to make the playoffs, because this is their last chance saloon with Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Mariners are 542 and 42, and then the Athletics just put a big fat thumbs down. That one guy from forever ago at the Yankees and Mets game. I think what are they? They are 25 and 63. They're the worst game, or they're the worst team in baseball by not
half
that much,
a game.
By half game, because the Royals stink. But we'll talk about
the Royals are terrible. Yeah. Well, at least the A's are trying to lose, but yeah, it's good. The Rangers seem to be running away with the division, but the Astros are making the surge that we all expected them to. You know, they got Altuve back. They're just waiting on Jordan to get back, and I think they'll take this division pretty handily. But the Rangers are going to give them a run for their money. And now with the Angels, they just lost Brandon Drury. Shohei Ohtani has a blister. Mike Trout is out for the next 4 to 8 weeks.
48 weeks.
Yeah, with a hamate fracture he just got surgery on. And yeah, I think a lot was going right for the Angels, but I think this is probably one of the last times we're going to see him over 500. I think it's just going to be downhill from here, which is unfortunate, but that will give the Mariners an opportunity to rise up, and I'd love to see them back in the playoffs again. But I think the Astros take this division pretty handily.
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, the big story with this division is more or less, can the Mariners sort of close the ground? Because I think the Rangers will have a pretty big say in the AL wildcard race. I think they're very good, but I feel like their rotation has taken a big hit. Their lineup is really good, but obviously they lost DeGrom. Heaney's been pretty bad. Eovaldi's got some question marks around him now because he's had the huge dip in velocity and then therefore effectiveness. Literally the best pitcher in their rotation the last couple of weeks has been Dane Dunning. And they're just sort of struggling. John Gray is also sort of falling back down to earth. I don't know. Everyone sort of expected it, or at least I did. He's John Gray. But yeah, they're struggling. And then the other big thing to watch here is, what did the Angels actually do? If they just sort of crater now, I mean,
please crater now so we can see a Shohei Ohtani trade deadline.
If they crater now, they sort of have to trade Ohtani, because I just don't think he's ever going to resign.
I mean, them being good is bad for the team right now.
It is.
They're missing out on so much that could help the organization for years to come if they trade Ohtani. It's half a year of Ohtani, but I can't imagine they would get so much, and to get that over the qualifying offer, I think that's honestly worth it. It sucks to have Ohtani leave town, and I would hate that to be an Angels fan. But if you really care about your team as an Angels fan, I think you gotta say bye to Ohtani.
Bite the bullet. The Angels should probably also trade Mike Trout, because everyone wants to see him actually play in a playoff game at least one more time, and that's never going to happen as long as he plays for the Los Angeles Angels. Just trade Ohtani to the Reds for a bunch of their other prospects.
Did you see that? Did you see that potential trade that somebody posted where it was
I didn't.
It was Ellie De La Cruz, Nick Lodolo, and Christian Encarnacion Strand for Shohei Ohtani and Matt Moore.
I feel like that's realistic, but I feel like, as crazy as that trade is, I feel like the Reds wouldn't trade Ellie De La Cruz.
No, I feel like that's too much for the Reds, because you're only getting half the season of Shohei Ohtani. If you could ensure that you're locking him into a $600 million deal,
the Reds are never, ever, ever giving anybody a $100 million contract, let alone a $600 million contract.
Yeah.
Did you see the meme that I sent you? That was the White Sox should offer Ohtani the 4-year, $80 million contract.
Yeah.
So he could sign the richest contract in a team's history.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty sick. But
so funny.
Speaking of that dumpster fire, we're going to talk about the AL Central, which is the dumpster fire division in all baseball.
Dumpster fire.
It's the dumpster fire division. Have you followed the Twitter trend that's on this edition of this team in the AL East, or
every team in the AL East?
Yeah, every team in the AL East would also be winning the AL Central.
Yeah.
And that's because the Twins are currently winning it at 45 and 43, which is very good. We talked about the Angels being a bum team that need to sell and blow it up, and they are 45 and 43. They have the same exact record as the Twins, who are 45 and 43. Followed very closely behind by the Guardians, who are also a baseball team in that division at 42 and 44. The Tigers are mid. They're 37 and 48. White Sox are ass. They're 37-50.
They're one of like the funniest organizations. They like try so
What a
hard. They
joke.
try so hard and they're so bad.
What a joke
It's
organization.
crazy.
The
Like,
White
yeah, the
Sox
Central is
suck.
wild. Like the
They're so
Central is
bad.
wild. You got like the Twins and the Guardians, which are like respectable organizations, but they like don't do enough to like be like powerhouses. And then you got like Tigers, White Sox, Royals. We are all terrible, except we all try to be good. The Tigers were like 2 years ago. We're like, oh, here we go. We're breaking out. This is going to be, and then there's
Never
the
mind.
worst team in baseball.
Never
The Royals
mind.
are
Back
like,
to
here we go.
repo.
We're breaking out. We're terrible. And then the White
Yeah.
Sox was like, yeah, let's give out the richest contract in our team's history to Andrew Benintendi, and then also be terrible because we thought getting rid of Tony La Russa would change everything. So did I, but yeah,
I wasn't falling for it. I knew that team sucked. I called it. I said that team sucked a long time ago.
You said the Rays were making it.
Yep.
You said the Rays weren't making it, didn't you?
I had to pick one. I was like, and I literally even said it. I'm like, I hate betting against the Rays because I know they're going to prove me wrong. But they were the one team that was the closest, and it felt like the easiest. I literally put like, this is the cop out answer.
Yeah.
And then they made me look like an idiot, like they made everyone else look like an idiot.
Yeah.
But yeah. The Royals are for my money, I think the Royals are the worst team in baseball.
Yeah, they're way worse than the A's because they're trying.
This is them calling up most of their young talent. That's good.
It's going to be a rough next 10 years.
And then like Bobby Witt doesn't suck, but he's mid. Pasquantino, he's sick, but then he got hurt.
He's injured.
Nick Pratto hasn't been hitting.
Their pitching is terrible. Their pitching is awful.
Brady Singer had a breakout year last year, and he's like the biggest fool's gold in the world. Ask me how I know. It's because I drafted him in our stupid fantasy baseball league, and he proceeded to lay like 5 eggs in a row. He sucks. Yep. I dropped him. Then somebody else picked him up. He sucked again. It's like, why does Brady Singer suck? Because he just sucks. Like he just sucks at this point. Like, wasn't there like a number 1 prospect like Asa Lacy, and he's like not panning out either?
Yeah, he was their first round pick a few years ago, and he's not even a top
stinks.
100 anymore. Yeah, it's crazy how bad they've drafted, and I think their biggest thing is player development, especially on the pitching end. They just are terrible. They are terrible, especially like even once they reach the majors, like Daniel Lynch, Chris Bubich, Jackson Kowar. Yeah, just every single guy. Like they have a ton of pitching prospects, and none of them pan out. Brady Singer panned out for a year, and that's about all we've seen. So pretty unfortunate. But also, I think it's because they banned porn or whatever.
What?
You don't know about that?
No.
Their GM like banned porn a while ago.
Why did he even need to say that?
Because it's a Christian organization, my dude. Royals hold anti-porn seminar for players at spring training, March 2018. Fight the New Drug co-founder Clay Olson spoke to the players at spring training in Surprise, Arizona. The nonprofit organization posted photos to Instagram of players attending the workshop. We're inspired that they're stepping up to the plate. Fight the New Drug describes itself as a group focused on raising awareness on porn's harmful effects using only science, facts, and personal accounts. The group states that it is not religiously affiliated. Sure, it's not. Yeah.
Sure.
Royals vice president of communications and broadcasting Mike Swanson told USA Today that the seminar was mainly for impressionable minor league players, and that the pornography discussion was just one part of the off the field education the teams provides to the players. Swanson added that GM Dayton Moore is passionate about the issue, and the goal is for players to be zeroed in on their performance for games. We can't have you being distracted by these internet boobies when you got to be focused on losing baseball games.
Get out there and lose some baseball games.
Ridiculous.
The internet is now banned.
It's so funny. Yeah, that's wild.
Hey Jake,
they kicked me off the Royals.
Who do you think has the most WAR as a pitcher for the Kansas City Royals?
Aroldis Chapman.
It is Aroldis Chapman. He's the only one that actually.
What team is he on now?
The Rangers.
Let's go.
He's only worth 1.2 WAR. He's the only pitcher that currently exists on the Kansas City Royals that has more than 1 F WAR. These guys, they're so bad. They also only have 2 hitters that are above 1 F WAR. One of them is Bobby Witt Jr. Who's the other one?
Vinny Pasquantino.
Nope.
Wow, really?
Nope.
Michael Garcia.
It is Michael Garcia.
Let's
He is
go.
1.9 and Bobby Witt has 2. They're so bad. What
Nice.
a dumpster organization.
All
And then
right.
the AL East, this is the division that's insanely competitive
Mm-hmm.
throughout top to bottom. Every team still above 500. I feel like it's been that way since the start of the year. I feel like we've not had a month in review where we've talked about a single team in this division that is below 500. The Tampa Bay Rays, currently one game out of the most wins in baseball, are 57-32, still at the top of the division, sort of waning a little bit. We had like the weird little issue where they pulled pitcher really early, and then they pulled Wander Franco. It was a whole ordeal, but nobody knows really what's going on. But they are 57-32, followed closely behind. 5 games back are the Baltimore Orioles at 50-35, and the Yankees are 48-39. They're sort of waning a little bit. They're hanging in there because their pitching is sort of carrying them. Their lineup is very bad without Aaron Judge. The Toronto Blue Jays are 46-40, and then the Red Sox are lowly 44-43. They actually would not be leading the AL Central. They'd just be like half a game back.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how good the Orioles have been this year. The Rays have really fallen off, but still great start to the season has carried over. But the Orioles really surprising this year. I think they were one of the teams that we were expecting to break out, but then they didn't do anything in the offseason. And I guess they're somewhat smart. I would have liked to see them add more pitching, but they have been able to call up all of their prospects and all of them work. Jordan Westberg called up a couple weeks ago, and Colton Cowser just called up yesterday. So they've got some legitimate talent on the offensive end. I'm sure Grayson Rodriguez is going to be back up shortly as well, but Orioles definitely a surprise team this year. And Blue Jays news, Alek Manoah coming back tomorrow, which should be exciting. After that blow up in the rookie ball, he got moved up to AA and he struck out at like 11 batters or something. He looked way better. I'm not sure he's totally back yet. It is AA. But
maybe all he needed was a pep talk, and maybe they just found the right guy to hype him up, and he's just got all the energy in the world.
Yeah, they just grabbed some guy who just like went and was just like, "You freaking suck! You let 11 runs versus rookie ball."
Hey, don't say that. It hurt my feelings. And then he's just gonna fan everybody in double.
Because I love Alek Manoah. He's got that dog in him. I think they just needed to wake up the dog. The dog was taking a nap.
X grit.
Yes.
100 grade X grit.
Yeah.
I really expect basically every team in this division to be buyers at the deadline, which is very funny. And the Orioles, I think, are probably, if the Rays continue sort of their free fall, I think the Orioles are very primed to win this division. Honestly, just because their one big need is starting pitching. Tyler Wells has been good. Dean Kremer's been fine, but he's not been like great. And then like Kyle Gibson is Kyle Gibson. So you really don't ever know what you're going to get out of Kyle Gibson. Like he's literally the definition of mid. Like he might be pretty good. He might be all right. Grayson Rodriguez could be pretty good, but I feel like they could probably be a team that could swing a big trade. They have a lot of depth in the top of their farm system, especially for infielders, and they have a lot of them already, which would be, a pretty decent way to start it off. I know they called up Jordan Westberg, who's basically going to play. What they need to do is get rid of that bum Jorge Mateo and put Gunnar Henderson.
He's on the bench.
Short. He needs to be. Have you seen?
Yeah. They got Gunnar at short. They got Westberg at third.
I'm pretty sure I saw a tweet the other day that said Jorge Mateo through June, his WRC plus was 2.
I talked about this in a podcast recently because if you look at after April, because during April, Jorge Mateo was really good. He had 6 home runs. He stole 10 bases. He was batting 347, 187 WRC plus. And then after April, since the start of May, he has 0 home runs, 12 stolen bases. He's batting 148 with a 2 WRC plus.
It's pretty good. They should put Westberg at second, and then they should make a trade for. They should put third. They should put him to second, and they should make a trade for Candelario.
No, bro. Adam Frazier is going to have a huge second half. Guy's batting 228 on the year. He's got a 229 BABIP. His X batting average is 280. He's got the highest walk to strikeout ratio of his career, 0.69. Actually, outside of 2021, 0.7.
Jake, he's
He's
worth point
already
one.
tied his career high in home runs. He
Wow,
got
what is
10
it
home
like?
runs.
Wow, wow.
Already tied his career high in 80 games, man. And he's batting 228. Just imagine when the BABIP turns around.
Shut up, Jake.
You just
Shut up. That guy stinks. But either way, we have our monthly awards since we are now done with all of our divisions. We have our monthly awards on this cajillion minute long podcast. We'll start with players of the month. Who do you think they are, Jake?
Probably the two best players in baseball, I'd guess.
Yeah, I would think so. It's Shohei Ohtani in the AL, and the NL side is Ronald Acuna Jr. Yeah, we already talked about those the entire podcast, so I feel like we don't need to cover it anymore. They're basically 1 and 2, and I want to say it's like a distant one for Ohtani because it kind of is, but Acuna is very much like he's the NL MVP right now, and it's not really even close.
Yeah.
But pitchers of the month also, we talked about these guys already. James Paxton and Blake Snell, both staking their claim to lefties.
Yeah, the whip leaders.
And then the rookies of the month. The pretty much both guys here were like the favorites to win Rookie of the Year in their respective leagues. In the AL is Gunnar Henderson, and in the NL, you basically just give it to him right now, Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson still striking out a lot this year, but he batted 300 with a 150 WRC plus in June. And Corbin Carroll just been incredible all year. He's been dealing with an injury to close out June, but still like a great season for him thus far. In June, he batted 291, 158 WRC plus, 8 homers, 8 steals. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. He's still only 22 years old. I mean, yeah, just if we weren't so used to young players like breaking out at like 21, 22 with Juan Soto and Ronald and Tatis and Julio the past few years, I think we would have looked at Corbin Carroll and been like, holy moly, this is crazy. This guy's 22, but we sort of become jaded to that incredible season he's having. Probably won't have a say in the NL MVP race, but he'll be there. He'll definitely be a finalist, I think.
Definitely. And Corbin Carroll, I mean, we don't really need to talk about him. He's very much the best rookie in the NL. So he's basically going to win this basically every single month until the season's over, probably. And then relievers of the month, we have the Mountain Felix Bautista. He's not King Felix, despite the stupid thing that the Orioles posted. He's not King Felix. He's the Mountain Felix Bautista. And then the NL reliever of the month, Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah, Bautista, despite having just 7 saves, he had 22 strikeouts in 10 2/3 innings. He had a 0.84 ERA. He's like the most dominant pitcher in baseball this year, 51% strikeout rate. Just like really great. He's really impossible to hit. He's pretty wild, but that hasn't stopped him from really having an incredible season. We saw that in the second half last year, and he's sort of just turning into a full season thing. And Kimbrell has held on to the closer role in Philly, even with Jose Alvarado coming back. Yeah, 0.69 ERA. Nice in June. Came with just 5 saves, but he had 21 strikeouts in 13 innings, and just 3 walks. He's sort of looking like old Craig Kimbrell again, and that's it's pretty crazy for the Phillies to have a bullpen that you can actually trust.
Craig Kimbrell's a really weird reliever because he sucks if he's not the closer. But when he is the closer, he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball. I don't understand it. He literally did the exact same thing with Boston in the playoffs. When he was not in a save situation, he sucked. Well, then he parlayed that with the Cubs. He completely sucked when he was not the closer, when they were sort of trying to figure it out with him. And then put him in the closer role, dominant. Trade him to the White Sox, sets up for Liam Hendricks, sucks. Goes to the Dodgers, sucks. He's not the closer. Goes to the Phillies, not the closer, sucks. Now he's the closer. Hey, Craig Kimbrell, Hall of Famer. Like, I love the guy. I love him to death. And I'm glad that he's having success again. Because I think I really like Craig Kimbrell. He's one of my favorite real, like, actual pitchers in baseball history. He's just electric to watch. He's got the funny wind up with the arm hang. I really like Kimbrell, and I'm glad that he's having success. He only gave up like 1 earned run, I think, the entirety of June. I think he gave up like 1. Yeah, he gave up 1. He gave up 1 run in general, and it was against the Tigers. So pretty good. And then now we're done with all of our awards. Talk about more All-Star stuff. Home Run Derby bracket.
Yeah, we'll wrap things up here with the Home Run Derby bracket. I mean, I think we'll probably draft these. This is what we did last year. I think we recorded on Home Run Derby Day, which is that the day before the All-Star game?
I think
Is it
so.
the day after? Oh shoot. We might be out of luck. If
It's
that's
the 10th.
so, then it's the 10th?
That's the 10th.
Okay. Well, we record on the 12th next. You want to draft him now?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Might as
here
well.
we go. The annual Home Run Derby draft. It's just me and Davis, so we'll each be picking 4 guys. Our contestants in order of ranking. We got Luis Robert, who's number 1. Pete Alonso, number 2. Pretty cool having Luis Robert in there, and Pete Alonso, one of the best Home Run Derby candidates in the last few years. Number 3, we got Mookie Betts, who we talked about earlier in this episode, one of the best players in our generation. Number 4, Adolis Garcia. That guy's got big power. 5, we got Randy. He's going to put on a show, that's for sure. Number 6, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had one of the best Home Run Derby performances we've ever seen in Cleveland. Number 7, Julio Rodriguez. I mean, last year, did he win last year? I think he won last year. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And 8, Adley Rutschman, not the biggest home run hitter of this group, but he's a really exciting young player. So should we flip a coin?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Coin flip. All right. It flipped once. It's flipping once, and then we're going to flip it again. All right. I'm going to let you call it.
Heads.
All right. And we are flipping. And it's heads.
Sick.
Go ahead.
Give me Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso. Good call. All right. I should write this down.
Gonna reclaim the crown. Pete Alonso.
All right. You take Pete, and I'll take. Oh, that's all caps. I think I will go with the second round pick. I'm gonna go Vlad.
All right. Give me J-Rod.
All right, that's a pretty good start for you, J-Rod and Pete, the 2 of the winners of the past few years. And now we sort of get into uncharted territory of guys we haven't really seen in the Home Run Derby. And well, I think Randy's going to put on a show. I think I got to go Adolis. I think he's got that like Home Run Derby vibe where he's going to like be the quiet guy who has
It's
a lot of
Cajillion.
home runs. Yeah, exactly. Just is yoked. Yeah.
Give me Randy.
Randy. All right. Your team's a lot of fun.
I love Randy. He's the star of my fantasy baseball team.
All right. So the guys we have left right now are Mookie,
Adley, and Robert.
And Luis Robert. I'm gonna take Luis Robert. He's hit the most home runs among this group, so I gotta take him.
All right, I'm gonna take Mookie. Damn. I feel like Mookie's actually gonna win it.
I think you're gonna win this draft too. Pete, J-Rod, Randy, and Mookie versus my Vlad, Adolis, Luis Robert, and Adley Rutschman.
I think it's pretty close. I mean, like Vlad should have won the one he put on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you got Adley. I feel like he could be a dark horse.
Mm-hmm.
He unfortunately has to play in stupid Camden because they've ruined their stadium. Adolis Garcia you literally look at the picture of that man and his like neck is insanely wide. So you know he's young. He'll hit a million home runs. Luis Robert Jr. I was debating on taking him when I had the chance, and I was like, I kind of was holding out for Randy and Mookie.
Yeah, no, those are some good calls. I think this is going to be a really exciting field. Home Run Derby, I love that it's sort of opposite to the dunk contest in the NBA, where that has sort of become we just like guys that like are good at dunking. They don't really have to be like stars, but Home Run Derby, they get the biggest stars. You know, everybody you want to see. We had Shohei in here one year, that was awesome. So I'm excited, and even guys that have competed before coming back and competing. We always get the hometown guys. You know, J-Rod is going to be in Seattle, so he's going to have the whole crowd behind him. It's going to be a fun show. This is always my favorite part of the All-Star Week is the Home Run Derby is the best part every year. So I'm going to be pumped. I might even take work off that day so I can watch.
Definitely. And on that note, we have no closer. No closer. Go find your own. Podcast too long.
They're all breaking for the All-Star break.
Yeah, they're all on a break. But thank you for joining us for the 66th episode of the Free Baseball Podcast, presented by the Athletes Hub. If you want to follow us on our social medias, specifically twitter.com, you can follow me on Twitter at DVSBird, because my name is Davis Bird. It's close enough. You can figure it out. You can follow Jake Crumpler on his much easier to figure out handle, Jake Crumpler. Read all the stuff on the Athletes Hub. Also, they sponsor our show, but they make a lot of really good content just for sports in general. So if you really want like fan related content, based on like people that you probably just be talking to at a sports bar, it's kind of conversations like that. Head on over there. That's sort of the vibe. And it's not just baseball. I know we do the baseball podcast, but got a whole bunch of stuff: professional wrestling, soccer. It's a transfer window right now. Bunch of stuff for various drafts, a lot of stuff for preseason and for fantasy football, a lot of stuff if you sort of deal with that. And then after you do that, you can head on over to all of the sites that this guy over here writes for, like pitcherlist.com,
pitcherlist.com, and baseballhq.com. Yeah, you can check out my other podcast, First Pitch Podcast, on the weekends, in the pen every Friday. You can check out my playing time analysis for the Giants, A's, Diamondbacks, and Angels over on baseballhq.com. You can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com.
Definitely. That's all we really have for today. But make sure you check back with us. I don't know. We'll probably record before the Home Run Derby to have fun. And if you want to figure out when we're going live, you need to follow the Athletes Hub on Twitter at Athletes Hub, because that's when it posts our broadcasts. And then you can watch along with us talking about baseball, just like you did this time.
That's right.